365 Sports, Josh Neighbors, one of Santa's elves. I don't know if you know this about Josh. That was what he did before. That was his first job out of college was elfing. He elfed. And now
during COVID, especially, yeah.
It was good work during COVID.
Yeah.
Elfing, yeah, absolutely was. Josh, college football playoff starts tonight. Notre Dame and Indiana in a snow-covered South Bend. I don't think we could have gotten a better way to open this thing up aesthetically. Now, game-wise, I really don't know. I think both these teams are good. I think this will be a good competitive game. I just think Notre Dame's defense is too good, and Indiana's only seen one team that's this caliber all year long.
Yeah, is there snow in the forecast during the game?
I think so.
Bad for Indiana. Their passing offense is their strength, and obviously that will put a bit of a damper on their ability to throw the football effectively and do so consistently. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that we get like the Indiana State Championship for this game. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Indiana's got the coaching advantage. I feel strongly about that. But the one thing that Marcus Freeman's done really, really well, and I don't mean to do the stereotype thing, but he has gotten a different level of athlete in there to Notre Dame. They look more physical when they get, A&M, they really just took it to them physically in a different way than what we're used to seeing. And, I think last year when they played at Ohio State, physically they were right there with Ohio State. And that team was not – that Ohio State team, maybe offensive line was a bit more physical, but just as physical on the defensive line as they are this season. So that's what he's done. He has improved level of athlete, I think, in all parts. But, I mean, Curt Cignetti, to get to Indiana to this record, even if Indiana was better than everybody in the roster, the fact they hammered basically everybody they played besides Ohio State, very impressive. And so I think they've got the coaching advantage, but I'm a bit concerned in these weather conditions for them because their passing offense has been so effective this season.
I'm a big Marcus Freeman guy. I really do like him, but Curt Cignetti he's something unique and special. He's got a craftiness about him that is clear with James Madison and now with Indiana. But I do think that where the rubber meets the road here is that Notre Dame has more talent. Notre Dame can run the ball really well. Love is going to play. All these things are not in their favor. And the other thing I'll say, cold weather, don't have to throw that ball that much. Riley Leonard was built for this kind of game.
Yes, I agree with that. This is the kind of game where you expect Riley Leonard to do well. Now, I used to be pretty big on Riley Leonard. I'm not as much after just watching this season, and I know once again the guy is really good at escaping pressure. It's going to make Indiana cover for longer stretches of time, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm with you about Cignetti. He's one of those guys who wins everywhere he goes, but he's not kind of the quiet Lance Leipold, Chris Kleinman type. He's got a little bit more of an edge to him, He's from Pittsburgh, so he kind of does remind me of Mike Tomlin and Pat Narduzzi. If they had a coaching child who was really good, because they're both pretty good coaches. I feel like Curt Cignetti's kind of basically the coaching child of those two guys, and I just say that because they're both Pitt guys, the Pittsburgh coaches. Mm-hmm. But he's just got that edge to him, and obviously he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dabo Swinney comes to Austin on Saturday, and they are lucky to be here would be wrong, but given how there's a certain amount of luck that went into this season for Clemson compared to other deep historic runs that they've made. And look, he was against the 12-team playoff, and here he is benefiting from it. He was against the transfer portal, and look who's dipped in.
He's taking 2 transfers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dabo. Absolutely. Here's the thing. You get that one little bump, you're going to say, hey, listen, I got to have this. And part of me thinks that a lot of it was his coaches going like, hey,
we need a receiver.
Can we just
how about a wide receiver?
Yeah. Can we just go do that? Like, you made your point. You don't need it, you don't need it as much as everybody else does. But eventually, over 6 years, you lose, 30 guys, and you're not going to hit on all 30 guys to replace them from high school. So if you hit on 10 of those that are good, 10 of them who are good enough, and then 10 that are busts, which is still would be an amazing percentage, that means the 10 who are busts you have to fill somewhere. And I think that that's what we're seeing here. Nobody's telling him to take 50 guys, but he's taking 2. And he'll probably take a couple more. And Clemson will probably be a little bit better next year if they continue kind of filling in the spots. But for this week, those 2 guys don't help them at all.
Right. I mean, yeah, those guys don't help them. But like the thing about Clemson, if you go and you look back at the season, right? Mm-hmm. And you go and you look back about, they're 10-3 now, but where they lost. Okay, Georgia got hammered, sure, whatever. Louisville, a game is close. South Carolina, that game is close. And so, like, a few players for them do make the difference. And this is been my frustration about Dabo, is that you're not doing the 25 players in the portal thing. I ran numbers on this, and I think I talked to you about this last week. Like, I ran numbers about like percentages of transfer starters on the playoff teams, and like for your favorites, it's pretty low. Oregon's an exception, but a lot of those guys are SEC type transfers. Mm-hmm. Georgia, 2 of 22 starters are transfers. Boise State, 4 of them. Texas, 6. Penn State, 3. Notre Dame, 4. Ohio State, 3. Clemson, 0. So like you're getting the point here. Like a lot of these favorites, have a lot of coaches. Oh, I lost you.
You lost me?
I lost you. I don't see you.
Oh,
never mind. It's everybody can see and hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
I just couldn't see your face. I normally see your face. On the thing below. My bad. So yeah, I mean, this is a team that like can finish off their roster. And they needed help at quarterback before. They need help at wide receiver. They need, they're not they have not had the defensive ends they've had, as of late. I know Breesy, but like he's kind of the last one after the Lawrence, kind of that kind of group. So they have got positions of need that could be finished off in the portal. And they can find guys in the portal who are their type of players they wouldn't have recruited because they weren't good enough in the beginning. Like there are guys out there who fit the Clemson way that you wouldn't recruit though, because they weren't good enough to be on your team. You can go and get those guys in the portal. They don't not exist. So good for him on doing that. I don't know how they scored 20 points tomorrow. I've got no clue how that happens. But on that part of it, good on Dabo. I mean, it shouldn't have taken this long, but good on Dabo for the transfers. And Paul, do you see a path not to win the game, but for them to score 20?
No. I just don't like. I don't think there's a way that they're going to keep. I mean, they could keep Texas from scoring 20. Texas is really their own worst enemy there. I have this belief about Quinn Ewers that he's really good if he's healthy, but he's not often healthy and hasn't been, whether it's an oblique injury or this ankle. And if I hear one more thing about that damn brace and how revolutionary it is, huge. It does not matter how revolutionary it is. If his ankle hurts, he's not going to be at 100% effectiveness. That is the issue. Like, that is the thing. And I think football coaches, and look, coaches in sports in general, love the Kirk Gibson, Willis Reed, Stan Humphries played a whole game with a torn ACL.
Schilling.
Yeah, Kurt Schilling, the bloody sock. Look, I'm a Red Sox guy, so, when we watched the documentary, I told my wife, I'm like, listen, I may get emotional when we get to game 6.
This guy sucks, but man, was this awesome.
Yeah. Look, I just, everybody has a cool thing they did,
Yes.
But
that was it.
But I do think that in the long run of things, Kurt Schilling had that for 2 games he pitched. You're talking about now with Quinn Ewers, 7, 8, 9 games he's been playing with this ankle injury.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that, especially you talk to people who know how to heal ankles, doctors and trainers, and they're like, here's what you do to make the ankle better. Don't play sports for a minute. Right. And that's where I think you see him a little bit off because his mechanics aren't as good as they could be. I think playing through that ankle injury has hurt his draft stock at least a full day, in my opinion. And
you saw Mel Kiper say he should come back.
Yeah. And look, he's not going to be the quarterback at Texas next year. Like, no. That's not going to happen. If he comes back, then he's going to be somewhere else. And look, that could be great for someone else. I think he's a really good college quarterback and might wind up being a really good NFL quarterback. He's got physical skills, but when you're playing through injury all the time, you're not going to be that effective. You're just not. No. And I think that's what's kind of holding Texas's offense back right now. But Josh, I'm kind of like you. Their defense is good enough to where they're going to probably fall ass backwards in a bad day into 24 points. Yeah, I think that's how good their defense is.
The defense might score some of that. You're right. The defense might.
Yeah, the defense is gonna make plays, and I think there's a little bit. Kate Klubnik playing back at home. There'll be a little bit of that emotion. I think ultimately, though, Texas wins this game. It may not be the way that Texas fans want it to go or think it should go, but I think they win the game.
Yeah. So I think also there's something about this Texas team. It just didn't. It didn't end up the way I think they thought it would in terms of the way their offense looks. I know they had a bunch of injuries at running back, and then
Isaiah Bond's not going to play. So
right, and the thing is, they had a lot of size last year on the receiving core. When you look at the receiving core last year, and pass catchers in general, Xavier Worthy, speed guy, obviously. A.D. Mitchell, 6'2". Jatavion Sanders was a hoss. Jordan Whittington was a taller guy too. They had Jonathan Brooks. Last year's offense was just built a bit better in terms of the skill position players. And I don't think they were really good up front too. They're probably just as good this year. I'd say it's relatively even, but the two Georgia games weren't the best look up for them up front at times on the offensive line. Really bad. Their offensive line played really poorly in some of those games, the two Georgia games this year. But I think it's been a huge problem for them. They don't have big targets. They don't have guys who can get separation and get open and make contested catches. Those aren't the kinds of players they have this year. And I saw Quinn in person against Arkansas, and he did not look 100%. Still trying to make plays, but just they've got kind of a bunch of pretty repetitive. All the receivers kind of look the same and feel the same, besides Ryan Wingo. But Ryan Wingo's not old enough yet and not good enough yet, and I think he will be, but he's not there yet. He's a pretty young dude. So I think this team, it's a bit of roster construction. It's a bit of the way Quinn's played. Totally think too. But Matthew Golden, they list him at 6 feet. He's barely 6 feet. Second leading pass catcher for them is Gunnar Helm, and he's he's a guy who's over 6 feet tall. Isaiah Bond, obviously, not a huge guy, 5'11", if he is that. And then you got Ryan Wingo. I said that's the kind of bigger guy, but he has not played all the way through the season. He only has 24 catches. So you kind of see my point here is that they don't have a bunch of variation in who they're targeting. They don't have that complete look on offense where it's this running back, this tight end, this wide receiver. They don't fill all that out. And I think it's been a problem too. And I think Quinn has struggled with that. And I think Sark struggled with it some too, but I think tomorrow they should be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. SMU and Penn State is a very interesting game to me because I think on paper there's nothing that SMU has that would tell you that they can go into Happy Valley and definitely win this game, except for the fact that their coach is kind of a badass and James Franklin is kind of an uptight nerd. And I think that's where I'm kind of leaning SMU to roll in there and pull this upset. I really am. I know it sounds crazy.
Really?
I know that Penn State has this really easy, easier road, but I have no faith in James Franklin in big moments. None. And this is a big moment.
That's 100% correct, Paul. This is a big game. It's a big moment. But so I think that the good thing for SMU is that they kind of got their slow start in a big game out of the way 2 weeks ago, right? So I would be surprised if they did what they did against Clemson again in this game. That would surprise me. That being said, man, what Penn State showed against Oregon, they've got the tools, the pieces. They've got the players, I think.
But what happened in that game? They lost.
They lost. They lost.
Yeah.
Yes, but Oregon is the number one. Ohio State lost too to Oregon.
Yeah.
So, and like Drew Howard looked really good. He was making plays, and he made one more mistake. But I think the thing is, if we're doing tiers, like top 3 tiers, like Oregon's tier 1, Penn State's tier 2, and I think SMU's tier 3. And so I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is like SMU's a really, really good team. They're not Penn State good, and they're not good enough to beat Penn State in their building, in my opinion. So I think Penn State wins. I would say it's probably a 14 to 21 point game.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
yeah.
I just, again, I have no basis for this other than vibes. Like, that's it.
Yeah, it's a big game, but it's not like Ohio State number 1 team, like top 5 big. So like this is where it's like James Franklin. This is like your moment.
Okay. I mean, look, if they lose
score
the
a
game,
big win, but it's not like the big wins we would.
If they lose the game, then
I'll eat crow, man.
Here's the deal. I can just put it more in the
yes, totally.
I mean, just I don't know why it is. And that brings me to the last one. Here's my hottest take. I think Ryan Day, even though like he doesn't know this, he won't ever physically actually know it, but it's in his body. He wants to lose this game. Because if he does, then he and Ohio State can mutually part ways, and he can go be an offensive coordinator in the NFL this year and move on and do that. And the nightmare of being like a 66-10 coach with 3 of those 10 losses to the same school that you're not allowed to lose to will be over. Like, he is the most reviled coach that's 50 games over 500 that you couldn't create it in a lab the way that he has managed to do that at Ohio State. And some of that's on him. Some of that's just on ridiculous expectations. But I think Tennessee wins this game because of the lack of offensive linemen that are healthy for Ohio State. But I do think that Ryan Day wakes up in the morning, Ohio State calls him and says, hey, you know how you always wanted to be the offensive coordinator of the Bears or the Seahawks or whatever? Like, little young Ryan Day at New Hampshire was like, wouldn't it be cool to be the Patriots OC? Well, guess what? We've talked to them, and they're happy to have you.
Now is your chance.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from. I think my big thing in this game is like Tennessee wants to spread you out. I don't know how you spread out Ohio State. They seem to keep it all, besides Oregon. I don't think Tennessee's Oregon. They kind of keep it all in front of them. And so I think because of how good Jim Knowles has been this year, because of how good their personnel is on defense, I think Ryan Kelly and Chip Kelly and Brian Hartline, they might live to fight another day and get that rematch with Oregon. But I truly, truly believe that Ryan Day is a good coach. He just needs to get out of his own freaking way. He needs to stop trying to make points. And I think this game, it's just a win game. Just go out there and win and kind of outlast your opponent in this one. I think they will. I think they end up winning by 10 to 14, somewhere in that range, but I think their defense has a big day because I know Nico's been better, but I just don't see how this defense has a, it's like, let's spread everybody out and run Dylan Sampson at you. And Dylan Sampson's very good, but you can't do that. It feels like against Ohio State. Nobody's done it yet to him this year.
That's true. Look, that's true. Again,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but like, I think this is a game they can't lose because of just the way it matches up. Like physical defenses typically do well against the veer and shoot, against like the Heupel, the Brile style. Like the rubber typically meets the road in these games.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true.
I think whatever side of the analogy you want to say Ohio State's defense is, I guess the road you'd say. I think that's where it is. I think this is too big of a challenge because that offense does not do well enough against physical defenses.
Yeah. And look, Ohio State, the other thing that's going to make them mad if they do lose this game is they had this $20 million NIL commitment. They had the best roster in the country. The other X factor here is this is Nico's first really big game, for for not all the marbles, but for some marbles, right? Like this is for a like the path to the marbles. Like this is the path.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is his first. Georgia game's big, right? Mm-hmm. That's a huge game. Alabama game is big, but like you had a pretty good sense post Bama. So maybe Bama game, maybe some of it is, but like you had their defense played great in that game. You had a pretty good sense post Bama that the Georgia game didn't matter that much. Yeah. Right. Like like they were pretty safely going to be in it as long as they didn't get embarrassed.
Well, and I think like if you look at Tennessee, every team, like Notre Dame's going to have one, like every team now in the way that you're going to play is going to have one probably really weird loss for the most part. Tennessee's got Arkansas this year. Yeah. They had that one.
Georgia darn near. I mean, the Kentucky game was basically a loss. Like if Mark Stoops is like not the most conservative person in the world, they lose that game. Yeah. So you have those weird games, whether it's a loss or maybe this team isn't as good as we think that they are. Right.
Right. And I think Tennessee had that with Arkansas. But for the most part, if you look at their games consistently, they're winning. They're winning the games. I think the other interesting factor in this one is Will Howard, who in his career, he has a massive win against TCU in that Big 12 championship game. After that, though, Texas, Oregon, Michigan, like those big games did not work out for him. So, yes, he beat Penn State. So he's like in his career.
Did he beat Penn State or did the defense just?
Yeah. So in his career as a starter, he's like 3-3 in like the big boy games, right? So which Will Howard shows up? The one who doesn't get you beat or the one who makes a horrible decision at the absolute worst time? That's a big thing too.
They need to be better in pass protection blocking though. Like their offensive line's been injured and it doesn't help a guy like that at all. Yeah. So like it needs to be a marrying of both. Like their offensive line, I'm not sure if it's much healthier now than it was 2 weeks ago, but they're supposed to be getting some guys back. But like they lost a center and that clearly affected them last game. Tennessee's front needs to play like everybody expected them to this year. I know their stop rate was pretty good, but there's been times they've been pushed around. But they've got all the weapons to beat Tennessee. That just honestly to do what Tennessee does to teams to spread them out. Yeah. It's Ibuka or it's Jeremiah Smith or it's both the backs at tight end. I mean, like they got everything you need. So I want to see it manifest itself in this game. And honestly, like Will Howard's had bad moments, but I think he's played well this year. Mm-hmm. I really feel that and believe that. So, and I'm rooting for him too. I am rooting for him. So go out there and like, you don't have to win the game, but just like, don't suck. Don't have the really like the moments where it's like, oh, this guy stinks. Like, don't do that.
All right.
That's what he has to avoid. Like, take care of the game and don't do that. And you're on your way.
Okay, real quick. Garrett Green is a wide receiver. Can he be Julian Edelman in the NFL?
No, he's not that. He's not. I don't think he's that athletic. Like,
okay,
he's athletic, but I don't think he's that. Like, Julian Edelman's like really quick. Garrett Green's more of a fluid runner, but I don't think he's like NFL. Like a lot of those, and I hate to just categorize them as white guys, but like a lot of those white guys, like it's like their quickness and they're just like their cutting ability that kind of makes them so good. He's kind of more about fluidity, I feel like.
Okay. Well, that's a fair assessment, Josh. Josh, happy holidays.
Same
Enjoy your trip home. Josh Neighbors, College Countdown. This is 365 Sports.